Yes, Pokemon is saved. It's fixed. Lotioned by the Nintendo deities. Look. We can zoom in and there's resolution. And watch. Ooh, you see that? There are frames. Slick and buttery frames. And the new GameCube emulator is bringing back Pokemon Colosseum and rar, Gale of Darkness. And with this newfangled Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrades of Switch games, maybe, just maybe, the worst performing Pokemon games will get to be properly replayable, but only on the Switch 2. Here's what I mean by that. The Switch 2 Kill Switch. Interesting choice of a name, Dbrand, who's sponsoring this video. People called the Steam Deck a Switch killer, but really that title should belong to the Switch 2. The apprentice bests the master, the son overtakes the father. Right alongside the launch of the Switch 2 this June, Dbrand's Switch 2 case will not only protect your fancy new Nintendo, but make the new Joy-Cons even more ergonomic and without sacrificing their detachability like with a lot of original Switch cases. Look at that, it pops off just the same. And the included custom dock adapter with USB 4 keeps it compatible with Nintendo's official dock. And just in case the Switch 2 isn't portable enough for you, the included crush-proof travel cover now features frosted transparent game card holders, so you can take 10 physical games with you as you explore the world and touch grass with the Switch 2 in hand. You can learn more and reserve yours now at the link at the top of this video's description, dbrand.com/Lockstin. Now, I did think Pokemon Legends ZA, a part of Nintendo's best-selling franchise Pokemon, coming out in late 2025 on the Nintendo Switch 1 was a bit strange when their new console comes out this summer. But that isn't unheard of. A similar thing happened back in 2012. Nintendo's latest handheld, the 3DS, released at the beginning of the previous year, February 2011. And now, the latest Pokemon game, Black 2 and White 2, was coming out June of 2012 on the original DS, at a time when the 3DS sales weren't that good and needed all of the help they could get. Having the sales juggernaut that is Pokemon would surely help its sales. But no. OG DS for you. That said though, I don't think this exact situation is entirely comparable. Black and White 2 were sequel third games that honestly were only able to be made and released so soon because they were mostly reusing assets of a DS game. So it's a DS game. If they had to rebuild the game with 3DS graphics in mind, well, they wouldn't have. They were already busy working on X and Y by this time too, so instead they would have just focused on that more. And consider the business perspective. What would you rather release your big game on? The best-selling handheld of all time? Or this new one that was struggling? Would you rather market your game to an audience of 154 million, or only 13 million at the time? Yeah, I thought so. Same logic applies here. 151 million Switches have been sold. That is a million for each original Pokemon. Meanwhile, 0 Nintendo Switch 2s have been sold. What you think about that? Well, obviously, millions will sell when it comes out, but not 150. Not only is it significantly more expensive thanks to, but also there's going to be scalpers and shortages. Bonus fact, the last official PlayStation 2 game to release did so only 1 week before the PlayStation 4 came out. The entirety of the PlayStation 3 was but a shadow to the power that is the PS2. That's the power of market demand. But speaking of PlayStation, this Nintendo Switch 2 edition upgrade thing revealed in the first Switch 2 Direct seems to be surprising a lot of Nintendo fans. I have to pay for an upgrade? Yes. I mean, I get it. Paying more sucks, especially in this economy. But it is industry standard at this point. During the first chunk of the PS5's life, games that came out on both the PlayStation 4 and 5 would typically charge more for the PS5 version. And if you bought the PS4 version to save a few dollars, hoping that the backwards compatible PS5 would at least help you render the game better, well, you wouldn't. You'd still be playing the PS4 version of the game unless you paid for the digital PS5 upgrade, which typically just made up the difference in cost between the two versions anyway. There is a caveat to this, of course, though. Not all games charged for that. Many of them, mostly slightly older ones, did offer their upgrades freely. And I see no reason why Nintendo wouldn't do the same for some of their older games too. Well, besides greed, I suppose that is a reason. I mean, they're charging money for a tech demo again. again because they know people will pay it. Other than being gamers, is there a difference between Nintendo fans and Disney adults? As a bit of a Nintendo fan, I don't think so. If anything, I like how Nintendo seems to be handling these upgrades. They're basically small DLCs on top of the upgrades. New minigames and modes in Mario Party, new levels in Kirby, etc. So arguably, it's already a better deal than most of the PlayStation upgrades, which do little more than optimize and increase resolutions and frame rate. But that is specifically what excites me the most here. Older games getting free upgrades to just run smoother. Technically, they didn't say that this is a thing that's happening, but obviously they're going to want to hype up the new stuff before saying, oh yeah, and by the way, these years-old games that you all have already, yeah, they'll run better too. But can you, buy something new, please, instead? How about Wheelchair Rocket League? It looks so fun. I was so curious how double mouse would work, but that's brilliant. Brilliant! Fingers crossed this will happen, because that, literally, would fix the biggest complaints about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. It has a sorry excuse for a frame rate and resolution. Even Sword and Shield could be turned into something fantastic with those tweaks alone. I mean, maybe fix some of the texture issues too, but I play games that look like PS1 games on purpose. Low-res textures aren't an extreme issue. Frame rate, resolution, and Pokemon draw distance are. The original Switch hardware was really holding them back. Only sort of, though. They clearly could have optimized the games better. I mean, look at other Switch games. It was always possible for Pokemon to look like this. But it's not. The games are made already, and as optimized as they'll get. And with that in mind, you can't argue that these Pokemon games wouldn't run better if they were running on stronger hardware and otherwise were the same. I'm sure you've seen videos of people emulating these Pokemon games on PC, and they run perfectly fine. They run beautifully, because they're on stronger hardware. And the Switch 2 could be that stronger hardware. I mean, the biggest issue with the Switch Pokemon games isn't even the visuals. It's the loading going on behind the scenes. Every step your character takes not only has the game load more of the game world, including fully rendered trees even at great distances. Egad, who made that decision? That is the opposite of optimizing. But it also has to generate a dozen Pokemon, their stat blocks, their moveset, their meshes, textures, their specific heights, weights, levels, shininess, EVs, IVs, if they're walking around or sleeping, if they're aggressive, rolling dice and doing math to determine all of that. And then you run past most of them without even seeing them. And as you run past them, it's loading more, slowing down the processor, making the GPU struggle to give you what you really want, which is honestly just a frame rate. Please. Any rate that's stable, I'd even take a solid 30. That is acceptable, but we're fluctuating between 10 and 25 constantly here. But if this game was left as is and just given a little extra power to run those background calculations, well, you're done. It's smooth now. Lotioned by the Nintendo deities. That's the kind of upgrade that I imagine would be free, because it's literally like a small update to the game's code to just let it know, hey, there's more processor power you can use now, here you go. However, Nintendo being Nintendo, they'll try to find a way to monetize that. I mean, physical Mario Kart World is going to be $90. I expected GTA 6 to be the game to make that first big price leap like that. Though, I always love bringing this fact up, that is technically still cheaper than games were in the 90s when adjusted for inflation. The original Mario Kart on SNES, when adjusted for inflation, was $91 on launch. So really, I guess we've just kind of caught up to back then now, huh? Uh-oh, that might be a bad sign for the economy. Trump's tariff uncertainty is definitely playing a role here too, hence the Switch 2 itself being cheaper in Japan. So, thanks Obama. I'm getting off topic again. I see potential for the Switch 2 to fix the biggest problems with these Pokemon games. Nintendo just has to let them. And I sincerely hope I'm not being too hopeful. But what do you think? I, for one, think that Donkey Kong's redesign looks fun and fantastic. Silk Song, an Air Ride sequel, has me hyped. It's cool to see the best Yakuza appear here for Nintendo to finally play. And most of all, I'm super excited to play Legally Distinct Bloodborne 2, but on any other system though. Like PC. Please?